Silence is waiting on the heart attack. The pounding in your chest found its genesis not through the loci of your pain, but through some dislocated force belonging to your body. You feel weak, slipping out of dimension and space. Arriving at an intersection between life and death, the valley of profound emptiness dawns on you. You do not have any strength to speak this truth. It is merely a cold comfort. Your soul is lost to the ether, stealing away from the world all your knowledge and virtues. Yet you find yourself through dissolution, awakened to the galaxy around you, stripped of its cosmic pattern, the undercurrent of distraction and suffering. You feel life, absent mechanism and animation. Forced to endure the deafening symphony of reality, your spirit echoes these lessons even in your passing, one's phase transition toward a new kind of existence. The signs and signals that inscribe meaning on nature carry us posthumously. A web of ideas echo outwards from their local intensifications, wrapping themselves up into an emergent network that runs parallel to everyday physical activity. It is said that the force binds all life together, a metaphysical ultimate which seems coextensive with yet constructs life. When a sentient being, no matter how insensitive to the world around them, acts in any such manner, their actions yell farther than their intent and localized motion. As such, there was a critical time in the Old Republic when a military general, murderer, slayer, war criminal, and savior felt their own death by way of ending false life. They fought a necessary war, but paid a terrible price, all while it duplicitously masked a shadow war to come, a brutal indictment of static creed, unevaluated solidification, dogmatism, and scholastic insularity. Countless thousands have been crushed by means of destruction that are logistically incomprehensible, requiring a certain Clausewitzian intuition to skillfully direct and utilize.
I dreamt of Malachor. I remember the ships, the last stand of the Republic, the tattered remnants of our fleet, the largest we could gather, but it was damaged, weakened, and vulnerable. The Mandalorians couldn't resist. They tore into us like beasts, shredding our ships to scrap as we fought back. Yet this time there were no reinforcements for either side. Revan had been delayed out system by Mandalorian scout ships. By the time he arrived, it was too late, and beyond Malachor there were no more Mandalorians left to die. I remember standing on the bridge with you and watching the destruction of the Republic, watching ships full of soldiers and Jedi burn and die. I remember the look you had when you turned to me. It was the longest you'd ever looked at me. You didn't say anything, just a nod. Events moved quickly then, even in my dreams. Flashes, explosions, you falling. I could feel the pain around me. And then the memory, the drifting hulks of the Mandalorian ships, the dead, allies, friends, strangers. And then the echo, lingering, the sound I awakened to in my nightmares.
Knights of the Old Republic 2 explores betrayal, war, and suffering on an impressive multi-dimensional mattress, far more thoughtful than even its original fans estimate. For it is not just a few quotable lines from Kreia, the musical score, nor about some computer-implemented D&D 3 rule set. It is an evolving tale, finding its original fruit in Planescape Torment, which grew out of a fascination with difference and melancholy. Over time, these themes and patterns emerged into ever greater forces, exhaling its last glorious breath with Mask of the Betrayer, but reaching its apex in this entry. From the muted interface design, to its incomplete levels, ambient soundtrack, and romantic words of continental philosophy, a championed Nietzschean struggle against a cruel dead reality, Knights of the Old Republic 2 embodies melancholy in every sense. There are grittier and edgier stories out there, but few, if any, match the omnitonal mood delivered by this game. Why should we value thematic bleakness? It is a blanket of trust and mutual understanding for spirits who've already borne and may still bear the incalculable weight of despair. There is a healthy escapism even in representation of fear and strife. That is, however, simply a motivator. The ultimate reason is quite simple. It is one legitimate aspect of objectively valuable art. To the extent we want to personalize art, however, artistic objects resonating with our individual backgrounds and psychological continuity is more than relevant. With every word spoken and every breath they breathe, every character in Knights of the Old Republic 2 sings a hymn of tragedy and alienation. Just as the exile has tense or pseudo-paradoxical relationships with the Jedi in their personal history, everyone we meet is in some way a refugee, a person in flight, or a literal exile from a cause that heavily shaped their lives. Rather than focus on the apparent badness of alienating feelings, as many existentialist works do, Knights of the Old Republic 2 brings it squirming out into the light. It symbolizes and abstracts this otherwise human element. What results is a high-concept story filled with ultra-vibe. It is not a shallow lament on lost social purpose, Obsidian are far too American for that, and instead focuses on being, as it were, virtually autistic and tastefully callous about these effects. As Visas, Sith assassin, emissary, scout, the sole survivor of the Miruka race, ended by her master who lost himself to power, explains to the exile, she was once made to see. She witnessed the galaxy in physical form, rather than through perception masked by the Force. There was nothing but crude matter in the noise of life. It was ugly, and she wanted to die. And that is what burns within our shells, we who are hungry for dark and paranoid atmosphere in art. To stand in some appropriate but negative relationship to nature, by way of its condemnation, or at least regret at its defects, we thereby find aesthetic redemption. Just as Nietzsche would thematically carry from the birth of tragedy onwards, it is through understanding the universe as theatrical and artistic that we can accept even its cruelties and obscenities. Nar Shaddaa is the glorious jewel of struggle and desperation, for it is said that the Hutts and lesser crime lords ever tighten their grip on industrial sectors, enacting abusive governance through a brute means of enforcing tolls on commerce. Nar Shaddaa, the house of refugees, exiles, criminals, drifters, and empty souls. One could understand it as an urbanized Duction, where the laws of the jungle reign. The Mandalorian clans respect the land as that which keeps their bodies fit and their instincts sharp. A bounty hunter chasing their prey through Nar Shaddaa stands not so alienated from the ruinous wilds of Duxon. They see the flows and currents, the ineffable patterns of people's attitudes and behaviors converging onto a singularity. Imagine yourself in the third person, running across empty spatial ether, impossibly maintaining the same physical laws of Earth, encountering mirrors and doors into possible realities. You are always fleeing conditions you are trying to improve, yet boldly strive and jump into the sinister white light glowing from every ethereal exit. When you come out on the other side, you find yourself amidst the destroyed, the used, and the damned. Having no way to backtrack the membrane of existence, all you can do is radically accept your circumstances and fashion a will, some self-styling moral and aesthetic taste which gives you conviction, direction. Every creature on Nar Shaddaa is running in this exact way, but they do not have purpose, nor do they dare to imagine the future. There is only endless wandering and flight, atypical ennui of a dangerous variety. These conditions are not just the central quest hub, but the staging ground for uncountable factions and forces, all meeting the event horizon of the Exile and Malachor V. From the agony of countless thousands, heard by a war-torn Jedi who effortlessly makes strong connections with all social creatures, came such one who, from fear and lack of choice, severed ties from the Force so completely, so utterly, that it left a dead spot in the Force, an emptiness which reveals that life is, in fact, possible without its influence. From one massive genocide which slaughtered Republic soldiers and Mandalorian crusaders alike, crushed in gravity's fist, as Kreia puts it, came the imminent death of the galaxy, yet the potential to rebirth a radical form of being. To feel the true Nar Shaddaa is to sympathize with the great demiurge of conflict and dismay. That is why Goto, a previous infrastructure droid who was asked to calculate a means to save the Republic, was forced to make a choice: save the Republic by adhering to its bureaucracy and laws, or step into the shadows and control organized crime through a series of super-intelligent feints and shadow plays. Goto chose the latter. His destiny will converge on the exile, but not as of yet. For now his influence can be felt in subtle ways, from protocol droids designed to badly play Bazak, and signals that only the most technical of Bith scientists can detect. It is why Atris, a slithering form chasing the shadow of Kreia, felt compelled to leak the exile's personal information to core world databases. This threat that strikes randomly and from the dark thus feels the call of home, a traumatic coupling with suffering squared. As one could say, she's rigging the ritual. The servant of Atris, Brianna, walks in her shadow, but yearns to be liberated from it. She shall believe in her oath strongly, such that she will be compelled to break it.
Ah, that was an interesting choice of words indeed. She has sworn not to follow the path of the Jedi by her oath, but even that oath is limited. One does not need to be Jedi to learn the ways of the Force. I suspect it cares little for our codes and philosophies. I propose nothing except what you choose to read into my words. But no, I would not advocate such teachings either. I am only saying that she has sworn not to follow the teachings of the Jedi, and that is a curious distinction in her oath.
The HK-50 units, activated by Goto in his quest to find and unite Jedi or Sith, a symbolic order to herald a tidy, orderly galaxy, felt, in their own unique ways, the terror of war pouring out from dying planets. They warped it into a genocidal weapon of wanton slaughter, understanding little about the art of killing. Nar Shaddaa is home to them as well. Our recurring companion character, HK-47, aims to instruct them on how one can transcend their construction.
Statement. I do not understand what you hope to gain by fighting us. You have no chance of victory. Recognition. You are obsolete. You kill specific organics, and only when permitted to. Proud answer. We need no such orders. We have been programmed without inhibitions, without restraint. We kill who we want when we want. We have destroyed planets, assassinated economies. We have wiped out entire races. Ended hostilities. Query. Do you understand what this means? Answer. Yes. It means you will never understand. When I kill, when I dispatch a target, it is not about wanton slaughter, about body count. It is about finesse, function, doing more with less. It is art.
Hounding the exile everywhere she goes, the HK-50 units are the robotic mirror image of Nihilus, a Sith who has lost himself to the dark side so completely that no personhood is really left, just a nihilistic black hole that embodies power without a subject to wield it. Nihilus is like an image of the Force, and how much a devil it seems. And there's Mira. Honhar stalks her shadows, the huntress who is not like Nihilus at all, but instead a collectivity onto herself. A careful balance of judgments and trained moral skill. For this, Honhar would haunt her to the end of days. In refusing to kill Honhar, who was sympathetically dying like a harmless animal, after his own explosive traps were turned against him, felt bound to a creed he already rejects. In saving the life of another person, one owes a kind of servitude to their savior, for life. To Honhar, this is nothing more than slavery, and the only release from slavery is death. The Zerka Corporation taught him that lesson all too well. He adheres to the creeds of his people, but betrays them through physical matter. As Kreia is often quoted as saying, "To believe in an ideal is to be willing to betray it." Honhar is the greatest mind slave of the Wookiee racial ethic. This precise meaning is inscribed on the chains he still carries around his wrists. Many tormented spirits run underneath the shadows of Nar Shaddaa, an endless pile of infrastructure unto itself, a perfect unity between stellar mass and machinery, and many such spirits leave Nar Shaddaa just as quickly, carrying its pain, its imminent lessons, as they pierce through the howling storm, the Force, which demands you wield a double-edged sword, always in the name of destructive balance.
One cannot abandon the Force, any more than one can abandon one's will.
Atton Rand, a character defined by a continuous series of feints. His initial presentation tricks you into associating him with some Han Solo or Kyle Katarn figure, or perhaps a comic relief companion, but buried within the Fool is a cleverness and perception even Kreia underestimates. Atton Rand too crossed paths with Nar Shaddaa. It is the focusing point with which we come to know him, for he is not privy to questions about his past, requiring a serious catalyst or accusation to pry information out from his solidified walls. It is quite amusing, holding in mind player-centric RPGs like the Mass Effect series, to face characters who yell at you for farming their dialogue chains.
You know what? Not once have I asked you about the Mandalorian Wars. Not once.
I heard about Duxon. Everyone has. I heard about Serico, and I sure as hell know about Malachor 5.
What makes you think you've got the right to interrogate me on anything? You've got plenty of lives to answer for. All you Jedi do.
Murderer, deserter, and yet absolutely autonomous, a man of fake shallowness and genuine depth, causes thrice he joined, and so too did he betray them. The Republic, the Mandalorian war effort, and the Sith, respectively. His heart could demand no other outcome. Atton Rand recognizes the lamentation that comes with wisdom. When all the causes you've endured, with blood and desperation, disappear or betray themselves, after that, you just want to be left alone. You want nothing of war, politics, or great causes. For Atton Rand, there is only hatred for the Sith and the Jedi, non-distinct entities who are, as he would put it, just men and women with too much power, squabbling over religion while the rest of us burn. HK-47 is no stranger to the Smuggler's Moon either. His component parts scattered all across the galaxy, he, along with T3M4, carries inside him knowledge of the one who belongs to neither light nor darkness. They forever walk alone. A curiously insightful droid, Knights of the Old Republic 2 makes heavy use of AI characters to challenge and critique the Force.
Answer. Obviously, a Force-sensitive, broadcasting such emotions puts themselves at a risk of not using the Force properly, since to use it seems to require an inner calm that most meatbags do not possess. As much as the Jedi could not use such a technique, the Sith Lords cannot use it for much the same reasons. Such passions as guilt, lust, and fear are really strengths to the Sith code. Statement. The Master felt it was ironic that only people who had experienced such passions could harm Jedi in such a way that to kill Jedi, you had to be a human being. Revan found that quite amusing.
The droids are, more or less, deafened to the Force, but intuit its patterns all the same. Kreia herself describes the exile as a human droid, in simultaneous condemnation and praise, for Revan would have loved the exile for this. They already represent life without the Force, but Kreia is too wounded by their function in the Mandalorian Wars to see this fully.
Betrayal. Machines. Her passion for such things defies me.
You can always hear T3M4 buzzing in the dark, waiting for future tensed soldiers to reveal themselves. A commander for Revan's great war to come. Zez Kyle walks the urban hellscape too, blinded by fear and doubt. For he would take no action against the Exchange, the Hutts, nothing that would make him stand out. Dulling and cloaking his connection with the Force, he was all but ready to die there. And almost ready for revelation. The return of the exile heralds his simultaneous redemption and damnation. He was so close to understanding the Force, its insidious nature, and if he is allowed to gather with his peers, their arrogance corrupts him once more.
And what was Jedi is Sith, and what is Sith is Jedi.
Nar Shaddaa bears the scars of darkly emergent patterns born of the Force. The suffering of all life is holistically connected, but its local effects go underrated. A simple cruel gesture or some icon defeated can be all that dooms an entire region to madness and decay. Here we can speak of Force semiosis, the bridge between semiotic theory in the actual world and its implications for the Force in this possible world. Semiosis is the study of signs, any area of potential meaning in the world, from mouth gestures to text on a wall to the subtextual messages of a riot. Through such critical points, the universe and its masses may be moved. These effects are non-linear but spontaneous, for the Star Wars universe, by the lenses of Obsidian, features a kind of hyperkarma, retribution and blowback weighted and driven by uneven scales, without even any hint of fairness or sense. What seems like regionalized phenomena also indicate the will of an insidious force. It is a dead end for all life, a self-enforcing lust for power, be it light or dark, that blinds people to the hell they occupy. All souls are prisoners, trapped in the pointless round of existence, leading distracted, blunted lives until death returns them to the Force. It is said that Revan matched Echani legends about warriors who could predict the entire flow of wars, an entrained, intuitive sense refined by brutal experience and disciplined study. The full-spectrum gambits Revan threw against the Mandalorians are only known by Revan. As such, this era of the Old Republic is heavily defined by obscurity, ambiguity, shadow, and half-truths. There are a great many masks, but identifiably few individuals behind their guise. That was Revan's way, to always obscure the truth of themselves. The exile is quite different. The exile cannot hide who they are, and their authentic selfhood is their base of power. This new Sith threat is unlike anything the galaxy has ever faced. It strikes from unknown points using undefined methods. Wherever Jedi, wherever Force sensitives gather, they die. As one's presence grows in the Force, so too do these mindless Sith assassins follow the scent, and so the Jedi scattered. Per Master Kavar, the threat must actually reveal itself, if they are to fight it. The Jedi felt compelled to fight on their enemies' terms, deception and betrayal. That is why they cower in the dark, waiting for the Sith to consume each other. It is through the abridgment of deception and truth that the exile first meets Kreia, a cryptic and morally ambiguous Force sensitive who twists your questions into her own open-ended gestures, all targeting similar sources that reveal themselves only by proxy. Through Bail-Dur awakening to the sound of Malachor screaming in his nightmares, Atton Rand poeticizing his participation in the Mandalorian and Jedi Civil Wars, and Mikau almost figuring out the critical pattern all by himself, the story is told through symbolism and characterization, all participating in one univocal centrality.
At last you understand, tiny Jedi.
You? Who are you? What are you doing on this
Enough. What did you see in the web of worlds that have died? What did you see when you saw it through the Force?
I see the death of the galaxy. Of life, first. I thought it was just conquest. But it's more terrible than that. It's an echo, spreading outwards, killing everything. It's not possible.
You are a wasted pawn of the Republic, young one. You could have been so much more, even with your wide-eyed innocence, your naive love for others. Now you understand the magnitude of what is being done.
I know you. Not even the markings of the dark side can hide it. Why have you done this?
I? Do you think I seek the death of all living things? There is no victory in such things. I do not want to win our war like this, little Jedi. When I win, I wish it to be because I was right, my teachings true.
How long have you been here? Among us?
You know the truth. I have always been here, watching and listening to the echo you have found. You know its source and what must be done.
I will not let you hurt her.
Little Jedi, you cannot stop me. But you will forget this. Your mind is worse than the others, so open, so trusting. Your feelings for her are your weakness. Yet I will gift you with this. You will remember what you have discovered when the time is correct. Know that you have seen what formerly only I knew. Now we shall see if you have the strength to stop what comes.
The Mandalorian Wars are said to be a series of massacres that mask yet another war of conversion. The Mandalorians have a brutal honor culture that finds meaning in struggle and combat, thus burning entire planets just to bait out the Republic in its full might. Their customs and weaknesses exploited, mocked, and overcome by Revan, even their priority fell to the wayside, as the true war was against the Jedi, against the weakness which could not survive the ancient Sith. Collectivistic masses of force, more so than people, who have been bathing in hatred for thousands of years. In a world of nearly infinite complexity, there are many puppets dancing on invisible strings. Everything is a trap contained with its own wide set and class of traps. Truth is but a rare moment of being revealing itself. This is the clarity of betrayal that Kreia heralds. She would bring about the betrayal of the Jedi, the Sith, and even the galaxy. A constant series of masks that service not illusion, but the rawest sense of final authenticity, just as she promises you, a finality where there are no secrets.
When there is nothing more that you may learn from me, when the ruins of your past have been cleared away and I am no more, then you shall know what it is. And if you do not, then the galaxy shall die, and all my hopes for you will have been for nothing.
There is great power in the use of antipodes to service a baseline ideal. When Kreia wears the Sith mantle, as she would a mask, she can create the right textual meanings and interpretations, cause people to believe half-truths, so that she may finally expose the cosmic theater itself. It is a technique presumably learned from Revan, just as much as she would have taught Revan the same, a kind of genuine pretending, for individuals whose essence shine through no matter what decoys litter their pathway. Yet great too is the power of the fool who has it in their heart that some authority figure is wrong, that gods hold no sway over them. This, along with Pilot, is the symbolic name Kreia imposes on Aten Rand. As much as she imposes idealistic masks upon everybody, he who pretends to be unfamiliar with Duxan, or the exile's history with war, as if he did not feel what poured from the moon, the frenzy and fury which had taken place there. Aten Rand can overcome fate too. No matter whether he converts to the dark or the light, his contempt for moral hypocrites and pompous idealists remains strong. Wary of all Jedi, of all Sith, the fool throws up strong walls to shield his mind. A current of remembered card games, indexical listing, and strong emotions such as lust. It is difficult for Force sensitives to impact his mind when one throws up conscious noise as a kind of anti-meditation.
Good match. Now, what are you thinking about right now? Right. And that's why I play Pazak in my head. Because if you don't, you've left the door open, and anyone could walk right in. Of course you did. You see, Jedi, light or dark, do it, more often than you'd think. But I never heard one say they were sorry before. That's a new house rule. Ah, I play Pazak in my head, but while I'm doing that, it's a lot harder for someone to walk in. No, I can only teach you to play Pazak. Do you understand what I'm saying? Good. Now you understand. Alright, I'll deal then. If you're ever fighting someone who has the power over your mind, whether light or dark, play Pazak. Start listing hyperspace routes, recite engine sequencers, and when they try to use their powers on you, suddenly it's not as easy as they thought. Because you'll be right here with me, playing Pazak, where they can't reach you.
The dark side represents a short, empty road to power. This is not just Jedi dogma, the Sith are often all too aware of this. Their own tendency towards self-destruction, civil war, and a youthful developmental ideology, where the old and complacent die to make way for the freshly bold. It is a high-octane nightlife rendered murderous. It is glorious, spectacle-driven, but can it communicate anything? And if it does not, then what is power for a Sith, if not blind obedience to their prejudices, to the Force? And so we come to understand the Sith Trivium Night.
Did you come here for answers? There are none. The call of Korriban is strong, but it is the call of the dead. I have studied you, immersed myself in you. I know the paths you walked in exile. I know your teacher. I know the fires that raged upon the Dux and Moon while the Republic died around you. You know war. You know battle. And I know of Malachor. You know what it means to be broken. The one who travels with you will destroy you, as she did me. I can end it before it begins.
Scion, he who bathes in pain. When Kreia was a fresh-faced Sith, she twisted the lessons of Malachor into a weapon, against the Jedi, against everyone. A medical analysis of Scion reveals that his skull has been fractured thousands of times over. That whatever willpower keeps him alive ensures his existence is nothing but profound suffering. Much like how any generic Sith taps into their passions, Scion wears the scars of Kreia's teachings all too well, for it's not the truth of pain that Scion represents, but emptiness. Like Nihilus, he is another avatar of the Force in purest form, an ugliness that all Jedi would reject, for they cannot bear to see their deity for the Lovecraftian entity that it is. Kreia would understand her own lessons far too late. What she once taught within the perspective of evil became her own condemnation of the Force. Kreia was a historian once, having already walked the path of Atris, as she tells you. Like Atris, she lamented the failures of Jedi, bathed in curious knowledge of the Sith, of the Force as a whole, and fell. Unlike Atris, she overcame the dark side and abandoned the Force's will as much as possible. A living spiral of contrasts and tensions, the Force cannot categorize her. She refuses to fall into its stable dimensions. The original draft of Knights of the Old Republic 2 would feature either Atris or Kreia as the endgame antagonist, and whispers of that plot can be felt here. They walk the same potential direction through time, but one must come to their end sooner than the other.
You have gathered Sith holocrons, Sith teachings from across the galaxy. It is why you have chosen servants who cannot feel the Force, and most importantly, they cannot feel what you have become.
I have sought to preserve the Jedi Order, and I have gathered all that I know of the Sith to this place, so I might find them and stop them.
I had wondered if any of these holocrons had survived Dantooine. You have taken relics from one destroyed planet to the devastation of another.
It was always intended for the Jedi to retreat to Telos should Dantooine be attacked, taking all their lore with them. We could not allow the tragedy at Ossus to happen again.
Such an act marked Telos for destruction. It is why the Sith came here, though the fleet commanders did not know why. It is why Revan ordered its destruction to mark the beginning of the Jedi's civil war. It was a message that there would be no place for the Jedi to retreat, to hide. I would not be surprised if Revan left other gifts beneath the surface of the planet. Much can be buried beneath graveyards that will never be found.
When the Sith attacked, I felt Telos die. Turbo lasers fell like lightning upon the landscape, as they did on Dantooine, and so many died. So many voices, screaming in pain.
Yes, such acts leave their mark on the galaxy. Their cries travel far, though few can hear them.
How did it happen?
Search your heart. It was never battle that called to you, never battle that caused you to fall. Malachor 5 has touched many things, and it casts its echoes still.
Why did she betray me?
You betrayed yourself. Do not blame the exile. And unlike you and I, there is still a chance that one may be saved. The one that you cast out.
Where is the exile? I had thought...
Oh, she will come, but it will be too late to save either of us. It is such a quiet thing to fall, but far more terrible is to admit it.
Nihilus is an all-consuming black hole representing the apex of such empty teachings. It is slavery to the Force disguised as mastery of the Force. The Sith are like a faction of misguided tyrants who woefully misread Nietzsche, where reactionary interpretations of Nietzsche are dogmatic, selective, and lack all dimension. So too do the Sith fail to understand that power games are their own slavery, precipitated by the rabble and especially the weak. Nietzsche teaches that history's greatest minds are often crafty moralists. It takes intelligence and skill to understand and apply moral concepts. Sith immorality is far removed from Nietzschean immoralism. Rather than flipping conventional values on their head, they instead embody a psychologically focused medley of concepts. Holding the Jedi to be hypocrites who won't admit their own love of power, the Sith fail to understand the refined, the moralized power of their opponents, and that is why they are forever blind slaves to the Force. Natural virtue gives way to celestial powers, powers that maneuver through deceptive shifts. The exile carries these messages with her for those willing to see as Jesus did. The seer, as Kreia calls her, is more perceptive than she lets on. Truly it is astounding that Kreia has few meaningful words of insult to hurl toward her, as Visas' mind cannot be manipulated so easily. Even without precognition, Visas uses the power of prediction far outmatching any Enchani war legend. She simply stays silent about it, for her blindness, her damaged Miraluka insight, which perceives crude matter through the Force, has only revitalized her insight. Just as outdated physiological speculations would have once echoed, when one sense is fleeting, another instrument sharpens to usurp the same functional role.
Force runs strong within you, Treya. But in the howling of a storm, it is difficult to hear the whisper of the blade. You have forever been the blind one. You were given a gift few are ever given, and yet you let your gift of sight warp you.
She's not the only one who gets the occasional drop on Kreia. The Iridonian, our friendly war criminal Baodur, cannot be heard or read by her. His thoughts are transparent to the exile, their shared suffering through activating the mass shadow generator all but ensures it. Baodur already knows the galaxy-threatening Force scream, knowledge that Kreia attributes only to herself and Mikau. Despite Kreia's revealed tendency toward invasion and mental manipulation, the Iridonian's thoughts are black and deafened to her. His mind rages with the lessons of Malachor, an emptiness that rests upon primal substance, the low-frequency humming of storm.
I know you can hear me. I have always known. It is why I followed you. I have destroyed planets for you, General, but now, this once, if we could save something in this galaxy. I need to do this, or I will die inside, like I died at Malachor 5.
It is said that Korriban buries its secrets well. An echo of Revan's passage, a ghost of Marker Ragnos, the dead still whispering in their tombs, for it shall ever be a place of evil, calling darkened and jaded hearts to its seduction. It was Malachor that paved the way to Korriban, a beacon for the hatred stewing in the dark, waiting for the galaxy to turn on Jedi. These ancient manifestations of cruelty have forgotten Korriban for a time, but they will remember. All celestial bodies touched by strife, conflict, and warfare leave traces of history embedded in the flow and substance of the Force. The faintest emotion can resonate with it, overlap, reverberate, and build in strength, creating devastating, unpredictable consequences. To master the dying symphony, to ensure that these echoes in the Force travel to your intended destination, is a teaching even the Sith are wary about, for it threatens the Force itself. And so we come, at last, to the truth of the exile. Dantooine is the dying womb of many lost souls. From settlers, mercenaries, salvagers, disenfranchised Jedi, is a tranquil subsistence lifestyle mirroring still the jungle and its randomized patterns. It is where Mikau abandoned the Jedi Order on example of the exile. It is where the exile herself was trained. It is where Master Kavar designed that the Jedi should meet, if there were any left, once the Sith threat had truly revealed itself. A relic from the Jedi Civil War, bleeding from within, the dark energies of that massacre infect even the minds of primitive sentients, the Kinrath. Yes, Dantooine is truly the light side of Korriban, and what strikingly little difference do we find?
This must be done. As long as you feel the Force, you are a danger to those around you.
Enough! Step away from her.
What?
Step away! She has brought truth, and you condemn it. The arrogance. You will not harm her. You will not harm her ever again.
I thought you had died in the Mandalorian Wars.
Die? No. Became stronger. Yes.
Is this your new master, Exile? If so, then you follow Revan's path. Her teachings will cause you to fall as surely as she did.
She is difficult to see. She's like the shadow of the exile. We sought to lure the Sith out, and now they have come to us.
As you would pass judgment on her, I have come to pass judgment on you all. Do you wish to feel the teachings born of the Mandalorian Wars? Of all tragedies that scream across the galaxy? Let me show you. You, who have forever seen the galaxy through the Force. See it through the eyes of the exile, as I have. Endure what she has endured, and perhaps there is the faintest hope that you will hear what she has heard.
It is where Rook, stewing in his arrogance, sought to center himself, to discover the arms of truth laying in the aftermath of the Jedi Civil War, to find traces of the exile and of the invisible threat striking at the Jedi, piercing their heart, displaying to the galaxy the weakness and faults of their teachings. To be a Jedi is to allow complacency to reign, to watch the galaxy burn as one meditates on its significance. Dismissive and reckless, Rook is an interesting avatar of Jedi monasticism and its emptiness. For the Jedi are still a hierarchically arranged religion, and they still spread their influence as less than benevolent entities. How could one ever hope to break free from the dark side if they cannot relinquish power itself? And that is what they fear.
The Mandalorian Wars were a series of massacres that masked another war, a war of conversion, culminating in a final atrocity that no Jedi could walk away from, save one. And that is what I sought to understand. How one could turn away from such power, give up the Force, and still live. But I see what happened now. It is because you had no choice.
To see the galaxy, to observe it through the eyes of the exile, is to invert Visas' traumatic bonding with Nihilus. It is to behold the universe as physical crude matter, yet radically accept it, even championing it over the tyranny of the Force, over that which promises Force sensitives power, all while it harbingers a constant cycle of war that stagnates civilization. If the Sith are false Nietzscheans lacking refined taste and introspective capacities, then turning away from power, in the name of self-control, presence of mind, is an event of Nietzschean overcoming, subletting the same essential drive under the guise of one's will to purpose, their morality. Mysterious whispers travel under the guise of sonic darkness, for it is hotly debated what motivates this convergence of events, to portray the Jedi, the Sith, and the Force, to mislead and tell truth in the same breath. What does Kreia believe? Wherein lies authenticity? When does she lie? The truth is more opaque than you may believe. Knights of the Old Republic 2 constantly explains its story in a single line, some sentence tickling over your senses and easy to miss in its entire meaning. Every critical character has already summarized the game and its ending for you. Yet the subtext is deeply non-obvious. It is a beautiful flourish of poeticized suffering, so drenched in its gritty vibe that one can easily misread even the clearest signals. There's nothing left but the darkness to guide the way. Hidden within the name alterations that are Treya, Kreia, and Auron K lies a rare instance where some fictional story has made sound use of anything resembling dialectic. For Kreia, it is enough that you understand basic fundamentals, her lessons of strength and self-reliance. Less important is perfect harmony with every word spoken. That is why she will seemingly contradict herself or change her mind upon more insightful player responses, for her words are not just explanatory, they are Taoistic inversions. They provide a higher, instructive demonstration.
You have seen the effects you have on those close to you, heard the echoes scream across dead planets, and watched as your strength has grown. Yet it is for nothing. To have the Jedi Masters brought low by such a failure, there is no victory in that. You have not heard a thing I have taught, and for all I have said, you have never learned to listen. Do you feel that, exile? It cuts through your defenses, as unprepared for such an attack as you are. Let that pain be a lesson, and a reminder of what you have forgotten. Pain travels both ways along connections in the Force. It casts echoes, always, and one can learn to draw strength from such connections and take it from others. It is a lesson you know well, and you have taught to others. At the end of the Mandalorian Wars, you were my last hope, the only one who could change what is to come. And now you have left me nothing.
Everything Kreia says is a condemnation of the Force. The Nietzschean celebration of struggle and survival is twisted into pessimistic dimensions. It is the Force which makes this struggle meaningless and ugly. It is important that the exile learn skillful manipulation, for the exile possesses far too much natural charisma and power to do otherwise. To have any hope of silencing the echo she has carried screaming from Malachor, she has to awaken to the truth within herself, directing it instead with an enlightened will. Everything is a staging ground for the exile to mold them into perfection.
Yes, always. From the moment you awoke, I have used you. I have used you so that you might become strong, stronger than I. I used your death to deceive the Sith, to make them believe they had won, so they would turn on each other. I used you to keep the Lords of the Sith from condemning the galaxy to death with their power unchecked. I used you to lure them to Telos, where they could be at last fought and killed. I used you to reveal Atris's corruption, so that her teaching could be ended before it began. I used you to gather the Jedi so they could be destroyed, and I used you to make those who wounded me reveal themselves, so they could be killed by the Republic.
Onderon was one of the first worlds to feel conflict and wrath encased within the Mandalorian spirit. Having failed in their initial assault, they moved to the moon, Duxon, thus marking the true beginning of the Mandalorian Wars. Here we find nationalism and internationalism at the apex of tension. It is said that Onderon once exiled criminals and those politically expedient who learned to tame wild beasts of the jungle, constituting themselves as their own collectivity to be reckoned with. Though these two peoples now stand united, the winds of change do not blow so easily across the semiosphere. Yes, Onderon truly hosts a strange people. For those interested in plasticity and effective control, Onderon is the key to the Republic reconstitution effort, and to its downfall. Here we find Queen Talia and General Vaku, a Republic loyalist and revolutionary nationalist respectively. Master Kavar has been orchestrating his own plays behind the throne, a feint masking his primary purpose, to find the exile, for the Duxon moon had impacted her deeply. Just as it has impacted many other lives. It is where Clan Ordo sows the seeds of their Mandalorian reconstruction effort, carrying with them their honor, their legacy. Our returning character from the first game, Canderous, shines ever brightly, having learned far wiser lessons from Malachor than the Sith could ever hope to achieve. Whereas the Mandalorians are adaptive and know an honor code resembling ethics, the Sith perpetually destroy each other, the Jedi stagnate each other. As Canderous is quick to remind us, the next Mandalorian crusade need not be waged against the Republic.
After the Sith are dealt with, you can turn your attention to us. Or maybe we can forge an alliance of our own. Our next battle need not be fought against your Republic. Consider what I've said.
Emperor stands twice a folly. A deadly explosion ended initial mining efforts, but a space facility remains near the asteroid belt, a relatively safe way to tap into its resources. The exile, carrying the lessons of Malachor with her everywhere, compelled the Sith toward her, and thus progress was no more. Unnecessary destruction to avert another, recalling the motif of the Mandalorian Wars. Aegis herself knows this, but would never forgive the exile for making her see the truth.
We all have our heroes, and when we watch them fall, we die inside. She made a choice once, and I did not. The day we judged her, I stood in the chamber, and she was so right. She was so certain of it. I doubted myself, but not now. She will never make me doubt myself again.
A heart can only bear so many betrayals before turning away from the galaxy entirely. The cosmic solar sphere certainly maintains a delicate balance. Just as the Force carries the horrors of war throughout the galaxy, all systems and structures, from the smallest of economic institutions to government institutions, participate in the deadly flow. This is why listening to ourselves becomes so important. It is not the destination that matters, only the self-realization found in vivid and vitalizing motion. This galaxy knows plasticity, but for that fact, it suffers nothing but damage. Whence comes the time for reparation and restitution? Well, never. KotOR is only too aware of this.
Then stop causing events of planetary destruction. You are a walking catastrophe, and you are not making saving the Republic any easier.
Such is the truth of Revan, a conqueror with foresight who understood that a galaxy must bear the cost of war, but not at any price. Leaving Republic infrastructure intact, so that a galaxy may stand united and ready, represents Revan's unique affectations on Sith teachings. As Kreia suggests, it may be incorrect to deem Revan as fallen to the dark side. Revan always fought for their own cause, no matter what guise came with it. Rather than dissolving socio-economic plasmaterial, Revan would instead wage a war of belief against all those who would weaken us against horrors and threats regularly spawned by the Force.
Fall. Already you presume much. You were there at Malachor. Revan's choices were always her own. It was not teaching or circumstance or example. It was her. Is that what she was? Or was she always true to herself, no matter what personality she wore? And there is something that the Council may never understand, that perhaps Revan never fell. The difference between a fall and a sacrifice is sometimes difficult, but I feel that Revan understood that difference more than anyone knew. The galaxy would have fallen if Revan had not gone to war. Perhaps she became the Dark Lord out of necessity to prevent a greater evil. I do not believe the Jedi Council changed Revan as they claimed. They merely stripped away the surface and allowed the true self to emerge again, someone who was willing to wage war to save others.
Yet such is the limitation of Revan. Revan, after all, finds no independence from the Force and its invisible strings. As strong-willed as they may be, few can transcend the dark side enough to overcome light.
Revan was power. It was like staring into the heart of the Force. Even then you could see the Jedi she would slay etched on her soul. You are different. When I look at you, it is like staring at the death of the Force.
Just as the exile must awaken to the truth within herself, so must the galaxy confront the truth of the exile. Just as we spoke of forced semiosis, so too did we identify vicious interdependence. There is little room for individualism and solitude in a universe where all life is deeply connected, guided with will-like regularity. That is what the exile carries within her, wherever she walks, especially for those Force-sensitive. A message that life without the Force is possible, that emptiness is profound freedom. Inverting nihilist, one does not kill life to bring stillness and cease pain. One makes life immune to the Force's manipulations.
And such judgments, I believe, are made in ignorance. There is no danger in what you represent, other than your humanity. You change others, but I do not believe it is due to the Force. I believe it is because you are a natural leader, and because you feel connected to the people around you. Where they look at you and see the death of the Force, I look at you and see hope for all life. And that perhaps a life lived without the Force is not the punishment it is believed to be.
To abandon the Force and its machinations is to champion naturalistic strength and ego over fathomless depths of primordial power. It is to find victory in defeat, security in anxiety, and abandon all unnecessary attachments. It is to overcome life for the sake of its own preservation. That is why the Jedi deigned to commit the ultimate betrayal. They were more afraid of losing the Force than life itself.
Did you not hear its call on Dantooine Vrook, on its scarred surface, and in the minds of the settlers? And you, Kavar, so close to the call of Daxan, tell me, did you not feel what poured from the moon, what had taken place there? And Zezkael, to hide upon Nar Shaddaa, yet blind yourself to all that happens there. So close to understanding the Force, so close to giving it up.
And it is why the Sith continuously destroy each other, sacrificing themselves for an obscure notion of power. What perfect slaves, to believe themselves masters of a destiny that puppeteers through cold, static currents. We have thus summarized the final Nietzschean lesson. A person who seeks external power over other people is looking to escape themselves, vacate themselves in a Dionysian frenzy until they become one with a collective entity, a larger purpose that is hollow in exact proportion to its assertive force. They are much like actors on a theatrical stage where the spectators too behave like actors, pretending that some noble lie, some pretense, should outshine truth. The Force is a death cult writ large, and stands far more abhorrent than that. Misguided spirits who lack inner peace and are slaves to their own cravings are cataclysmic harbingers of war, fear, and terror, but their lives and their destinies are as empty, as violent as Korriban itself. The message of legacy is whispered with the breath of the dead. And that is the emptiness we fight against. With every vanity, any small act of distraction, the capacity for choice is bred in our bones, yet it stands underutilized. That is why no static creed should reign over our lives. It is important that we assert all that we are. Otherwise, we become hypocrites, introspectively blind to ourselves. To live a lifetime of these lies, that is our unwritten tragedy.
It is said that the Force has a will. It has a destiny for us all. I wield it, but it uses us all, and that is abhorrent to me, because I hate the Force. I hate that it seems to have a will, that it would control us to achieve some measure of balance when countless lives are lost. But in you, I see the potential to see the Force die, to turn away from its will, and that is what pleases me. You are beautiful to me, Exile. A dead spot in the Force, an emptiness in which its will might be denied.
Denying the cosmic will refines and shapes our spirits, beautifies them into something transcendent, an existential statement that the stars should no longer govern our fate. Though we are called to write our fate with insufficient material, concentrated ingenuity to match move by move the machinations of fate allows us to defy articles of faith we've deemed physical laws. I have very much enjoyed opining on what is likely the most influential work of art resonating with my soul, shaping my history, imprinting itself onto my thoughts. And so it is necessary to thank those who made this endeavor possible. People such as Sarah Neste, Eppinger, Gustav Schiel, Palomar, Fall from Space, Thanatos, Rania Howe, Joachim, No Name, and those who remained anonymous, and all who have silently supported me in the last few years.
Only this a question I ask. What can change the nature of a man?